Welcome to my channel. This is Hot Mess and Hot Glue. My name is Lynn and I'm 100% the hot mess behind all of the hot glue you're gonna see. Today's video is really fun. I am part of a playlist, so please make sure you check that out. It'll be listed in my description box down below. But without further ado, let's just go have some fun, huh? So as I mentioned, today's video is part of a playlist, and what we are doing is taking some inspired pieces and we're using kind of a very thankful theme to our project. So I do have two ideas here that I have kind of used as inspiration, and some of these I just kind of came up with as I was creating. But again, let's just cut the chitter chatter. Let's get right on into the projects here. So this first project is a Hobby Lobby inspired project, and what I did was I just took one of these larger pumpkins from Dollar Tree and my Crop-A-Dile. That's C-R-O-P. I will make sure to have that linked in my description box down below in case you are interested. I first learned about this after working with Heidi Somble, and she swears by this, and I can absolutely see why. It's basically a hole punch, but it works for so many different materials, and there's no way a regular hole punch would have gotten this result. There's just no way I would have broke the hole punch. What was nice about this is it, it was a little stiff to get open because this was the first time I've ever used it. So I think that that's why, but as I went, it was a lot easier. So after punching these holes, it was time to just kind of deconstruct this little pumpkin. And again, I'm going to go right to my amazing heat gun that I absolutely love. It is a Chandler brand, and I will have that linked below too in case you are interested. It was one of those items I thought was just kind of a bonus, but it's absolutely a necessity for me. I cannot craft without it anymore. Once it's all cleaned up, I did not want to kind of mess around too much with the back portion of it and try to, paint over it and all that. So I just flipped the sign over and I grabbed these two thicker cardstock pieces of scrapbook paper that I got in a large book from Hobby Lobby when it was on sale for 50% off. Now, one piece, as you can see, is not large enough to cover the entire portion, so I did use two. However, you can see the dots kind of on that right-hand portion of the paper, and I didn't want those to be duplicated. I felt like visually that was going to be very obvious that it was scrapbook paper. So I just kind of overlapped the pages ever so slightly because they are very uniform. And so doing that, there was very little crease and very little transition in between the two pieces of scrapbook paper. Once I got it trimmed down, now I am using this new X-Acto knife that I got. I love this thing. It's so easy to hold. It's very comfortable, and I will also get that linked down below for you because I absolutely love it. I wanted to just kind of highlight some of the features, and so using a makeup brush, actually, it's like an eyeshadow brush, I use a very, very light amount of Antiquing Wax by Waverly. And I'm just kind of highlighting the ribs of the pumpkin, and I don't want to quote unquote distress this. However, I want the edges to pop a little bit because my walls are pretty neutral and kind of tan. However, this is actually going to the most amazing woman who babysits for my little guy and is teaching him to talk and just really enhancing his life, and I am personally very thankful for her. And so when I was thinking of this, I knew that I wanted to keep the color scheme in today's video very neutral for her decor because, again, as I am so thankful for her, these are all going to be gifted to her. Now, once we got the kind of detailing and distressing done, it was time to add some rope, and I found this more thin rope at Dollar Tree, but it still just wasn't quite thin enough. It was still way too thick, and even using my little Dollar Tree stylus, I could not get that rope to go inside that hole, and I didn't want to then create a larger hole because I was worried that I would distort the aesthetics of it. So to keep it simple, I just tore that rope in half. It does come with like 8 strands all clumped together, so I ended up with 4, two separate oh my word, 2 separate strands of 4. That made it a lot easier to weave in and out of those hole punched holes. Now, for the front sign, I'm just taking a Dollar Tree plaque. These come in a pack of 6. I'm so glad that they're carrying these again. If you see them, I say pick a pack up because the possibilities really are endless. And for 6 of them for $1, I just don't think you can beat that price. So using my Waverly Antiquing Wax, I'm going to give this a stained effect. I always use a baby wipe when I'm either applying it or just kind of lightening the color. Now, this Thankful sign came in a pack that I got from Hobby Lobby. And again, because the theme was thankful and because my feelings towards her are very much of gratitude and thankfulness, I guess, is how I want to explain it. At first, I thought I was going to leave this just kind of a bare wood, just real natural, but I do end up changing my mind because it just kind of, it looked well here, but when I added it to the sign, it just kind of disappeared. It didn't really have that effect that I was going for. So giving the plaque a little bit of a sanding just to kind of bring out those edges, again, to add dimension between the shiplap scrapbook paper and the board itself. I'm the worst at making bows, and so I was so self-conscious. I just kind of wrapped this one around my fingers a few times and then tied it in the middle. It came out pretty cute, so I think I probably just need to practice a little bit more, and then I'll show you guys how I made it. But because I was so self-conscious, I was going to do it wrong. I don't know. I was sensitive at the moment when I made it. Anyway, just adding that little bow on there. But again, as you can see, the thankful word just kind of bled into the entire picture. So adding just a thin coat of white Waverly chalk paint really made a huge difference. And I thought that that was the best finishing touch for this project. On to the next one here, we've got this little pumpkin. Now, part of my inspiration came from a Hobby Lobby picture that showed a really beautiful centerpiece, and it had a bunch of neutral pumpkins and a lot of just very calm and natural shades and materials. I've had this pumpkin for a couple years now. I either got it at the 99-cents only store when I lived in California, or I got it at the Dollar Tree. Either way, I needed to remove this horrible tinsel. So just snipping it with my wire cutters and unwinding it from the little hooks that hold the tinsel on. Once that was off, then it was just time to remove the little hooks. Now, when I did the hooks, I accidentally snipped the portion that actually keeps these 4 little pumpkin piece slices together. So I just clipped all 4 back together. I used a little bit of hot glue and I was able to reassemble this. Very easy. It wasn't a big deal, but I did feel a little bit silly for just kind of tearing through it with just no regard to what I was cutting. And I do that a lot. You know, I know I mentioned it a lot. Once I get going, I just kind of get in the zone. I'm usually listening to one of my favorite TV shows in the background, or I'm talking to my husband or something fun, and I just kind of zone out. So once that glue was dry and it was back to its beautiful pumpkin shape, I have these Clean Life cleaning cloths that I use around the house, and the texture is very soft and it's very thick, and so I didn't have to worry about painting the underlying plastic form or anything. But when I was cleaning one day, I actually told myself that I thought it would be a really fun material to use in either fall or Christmas decor, because it is so clean and it adds just like this pop of bright white. Now, I wouldn't personally want to do a large piece with it, but I think for that dimensional color to kind of mix in with all the neutrals, I really liked this material, and it was extremely easy to work with, and you get 2 of them for $1. So even if you only use 1 for a project, you just got an extra cleaning rag. And I don't know about you guys, but I have a toddler. He is about to turn 2, and I think that's all I do. All I do is clean and mop and clean. So I like having extra cleaning supplies around. To cover this, I just kind of added some pleats. I did trim some of the fabric here and there, just where it felt like it was going to clump a little too much and make it look a little bit more sloppy. So once I got it all covered, I have this little kind of spare wire decor. It came on a pick of flowers that I got at Hobby Lobby. I had picked up the leather, like the faux brown leather ones, and some blue velvet ones, and each of them had these really cute little curly cues on them. And so I just tore one of those off the pick, and then I never used it. So when I was rummaging through my little stash, I found it. So once I created the stem, I just wrapped another small piece around a dowel and created a small little curly cue, and then I like quartered a little piece of lamb's ear. Here it is in the kind of bowl as the inspiration piece. Here is another pumpkin that I wanted to add for that centerpiece that I wanted to make for her. So using one of the Dollar Tree's summer hats, I just unwind the material. It's extremely easy. I take a pumpkin that I had from last year that I had painted kind of, I want to say it was Ivory by Waverly, and it was falling apart and still didn't mean it didn't have any potential. I still had to give this guy some loving. So decided to use this because it was already painted for the most part. I didn't have to worry about painting it again because the bright orange original color it comes in will absolutely show through this material. So as you can see, the bottom part of the pumpkin was blue. However, I also knew that my design going into it, I was going to be able to cover that. So here you can kind of see that blue through it. But again, this didn't bother me. So what I have here is, in the next project, I edited this weird, and I apologize for that, but I will show you the bag that I got this from. But this is just a strap from a Dollar Tree canvas bag, and I cut the two long straps off, and I used those to wrap the bottom portion of this pumpkin. So not only did it add texture difference, but it added a slight color difference, but it still kept it very neutral, very soft, and it blended great. I have 105 probably sticks from the tree outside fallen over because it is definitely fall here, and picked one of them up, and I've just been cutting pieces off of it the last month or so to make random decor. I also had this flower pick that interestingly enough, the kind lady who actually takes care of my little guy so that I can focus on my YouTube channel a few days a week, she gave me a bunch of stuff that she was done using, she wasn't into anymore, didn't really want, and I showed her how we can take something she thought she didn't like anymore and reuse it. She said this was her favorite pumpkin, so I was very touched by that. Here it is, again, kind of mimicking that inspiration bowl. Now, this is the bag I was telling you about, so I used the straps from this bag, and that's how I made the previous pumpkin. However, we're going to use the back portion of this canvas to make another pumpkin. Now, what I didn't show was that you can kind of see the little white pumpkin here on the right of your screen. Now, that pumpkin was a velvet wrapped pumpkin that I got from the Dollar Tree. Let me back up a step. I'm so sorry. To make these little strips, all I did was cut like about an inch into the canvas, and then I just tore the strip, and that gave it a really nice kind of natural fray to it, and I just absolutely was so pleased with the appearance of that. So I was really glad that that canvas was so easy to work with. Now, again, you can see the detailing of the ribs of this pumpkin so well, and so I cut these into about 2-inch strips so that I wouldn't lose a lot of that detail. And I really prefer these little pumpkins because when you take that velvet off, it just reveals this beautiful pumpkin with all of this just detailed anatomy to it. And I just think it makes that much more of a beautiful end product because it's not just so plain like maybe like you kind of find with like the larger orange pumpkins. So I've had this garland. I got it off of Amazon about a year ago, and I've just been snipping pieces off of it here and there, and it's lasted me a while. I do think this is my last little portion of it, but to last a year, I've been surprised. So I just used it to add a little bit of, you know, detail and some embellishments to this, but I will link this garland down below. I've been really pleased with it. It does not fall apart. I mean, I'm happy with it, so more than happy to recommend it to anyone who's looking for something similar. I believe I got 3 16-foot garland strands with it, and it was definitely under $20. Now, here is the end result of this pumpkin. It goes so good with that little centerpiece. Moving on to the next one, I had that left over fabric or, you know, hat material. I liked the ribbon aspect of it. I still liked the color. And I came across one more of these little pumpkin signs that you get from the Dollar Tree. And so I thought that I would pad it a little bit, kind of make it a little bit more fluffy. I don't know. So I took these foam plates that I've had on hand for a while from a previous video that I did, and I just taped them together. I cut them up, and I don't know that it was necessary. I mean, I guess I could have just like painted it, but it did definitely hide the color of the wood pumpkin background, because this does show the color through. Again, I was kind of going for like a, you know, like a softer texture when you picked it up, but visually, if I had painted it, there would have been zero difference. So, you know, if you were to recreate something like this, I would say just kind of go with what feels best for you. Now, this is extremely simple. All I do is wrap this huge piece around, I glue it periodically, and I kind of tuck the sides in so that it doesn't look like it's stepping. As you can see kind of there, it just kind of flattens out just a little bit more, and it looks more rounded as opposed to like pixelated, I guess is what I'm thinking. I just did not use enough of this ribbon this fall season, and since this is my last fall video, I decided I would try to get a little bit more use out of this cute little Dollar Tree ribbon with the pumpkins on it. It's still neutral, but it does have a little pop of orange, which I thought was still going to be fine for her home decor, so I'll have to ask her. This one I've yet to give to her. So I just wrapped it around the stem of the pumpkin and then glued it down as usual. Again, off camera, because I'm so insecure about my bow making, I just made a simple bow and I attached it to the corner. My little happy fall sign, I don't know what I was thinking when I put it down on the bottom, but that quickly changed and I put it in the middle, and I thought that that made a huge difference. And it stands on its own. You can use it in a basket, you can stand it alone, and it's just a very subtle decor piece. Now for this one, I'm going to use a thrift store base, but I'm going to make it double-sided. So couldn't handle these bright colors, just not my style, and I knew they weren't going to be her style either. Now I will say I was a little intimidated making neutral decor with this scrapbook paper. So I sent her a picture and I just said, hey, would you consider this to be too bright? She said it was really pretty, so yay, I was excited, but I did not want to use a large portion of it, so I chose to remove this small pumpkin. It popped off so easy. I mean, if it had given me any trouble, I'd have given up, but it was just a lot easier to trace out that shape. So using shiplap, scrapbook paper, and some of that really pretty blue truck scrapbook paper. Now we've got a small, slightly dimensional front side to this sign. Now I wanted to tone that orange down, so just using some white wax by Waverly. I then found this textured white scrapbook paper in my stash, and I thought this would be really fun. So I kind of wanted to go for more of a classic neutral on one side, and maybe even just a little bit more modern on the other side. So just to give a couple different options of, you know, neutral decor. It doesn't have to be very traditional or farmhouse. It can also still be modernized without making it look cold or uninviting. So taking pieces of this scrap adhesive, oh my goodness, cork sheet that I get from the Dollar Tree. I usually pick one up here and there when I'm there just to have on hand at all times. I think it's very easy to work with. It adds a nice color, and I really like the texture. So using a stencil from the Dollar Tree also, again, if you wanted to use your Cricut, you could. If you wanted to use stickers, you could. If you wanted to freehand this, the possibilities are really just up to your preference. I just know not everyone has a Cricut, so I really try hard to give other options and just kind of show it doesn't have to look like a stencil. So I wanted to just kind of get the outline, so I'm using a very thin art marker, and I believe I even got this at 5 Below probably, and so I'm just going over the outline. Then I go through with my black paint pen and I fill the letters in so that it's a little bit easier to see. I've mentioned before that when I use stencils, I close in all the gaps so that it doesn't have that very broken letter stencil appearance. So It's just my preference. I feel like it gives it just a little bit more of a high-end look as opposed to having it be very obvious it's a stencil. However, there are times in your design where you want it to look like a stencil, and that's perfectly fine. So I'm just coloring it in with a paint marker. Now this one I got from Walmart, and it's the ultra fine tip. No rhyme or reason on why I used that over my other new set that I got, but I did. I did find some white macrame cord that I had on hand from another previous video, and I thought that this would add a really nice border to it, just to kind of blend that front and back piece together without painting it, because I didn't think that one color or another would have been predominantly best for either side. I just, as a design factor, I had a hard time really committing to a solid color that I wanted to use. So again, taking some of the scrap that I was using from the cork sheet, I did get these little planks off of Amazon because I do plan on making much more as far as Christmas tiered tray decor, and these signs are perfect. They even come with a stand. So using one of the Dollar Tree words, I just put blessed on there, as you can see, and then I'm going to attach it to the side of the pumpkin that we're leaving a little bit more of like a maybe a modern farmhouse kind of traditional looking side there. And I did leave the wood completely blank and natural on this side. Now to the other side, that's where I wanted to use that 3D pumpkin that I covered with the cork, and having the black lettering just kind of popped right off of that cork board. I really enjoy the aesthetics of this. I thought it was really pretty. So once it was all assembled, it was just kind of still missing something, and I had taken some leaves off of it in the very beginning of the video when I deconstructed it. Now, I'm not the type to throw those little details away. I save them for as long as I can. So I thought by painting one of them in a matte black paint and doing the other one in celery, which is another color that I love for the fall, but it's also very muted, and I used in a couple other projects that I made for her off camera. Here they are completely done, styled, and assembled. I'm really happy with how these came out. I feel like those two leaves added exactly what that back portion was missing. Now, I also think of Thanksgiving dinner. I think of serving people. I think of showing my gratitude and love through feeding people. So having a custom utensil set just seemed obvious. Now, Hobby Lobby does have a version of this. It wasn't the exact same, but it did remind me that dinner time and Thanksgiving dinner is a very important portion of being thankful for myself. So I just taped off the portion that I wanted to have painted and not, so that I would have a nice clean line. I did kind of line them up to make sure that they were all even, so that when they laid together, I did 2.5 coats, probably a solid 3 if I really, yeah, it was probably a solid 3 coats to get the coverage I wanted. I don't know if it was the wood or what, because these are bamboo, but just was harder to get the full coverage in the one coat. So using some rub-on transfers, just picked some words I thought were fun. I liked the idea that they were mismatched as far as their size and how bold they are. I want these to actually be something that can be used, so I treated the top of these with a dishwasher safe Mod Podge that Plaid sent to me. This stuff is amazing. It does have a glossy finish to it, so if you're not looking for that, you might want to go over it with maybe a matte Mod Podge. But in the end, I love how these all Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate your time. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to give it a big thumbs up. As you know, this really helps my channel grow here on YouTube. This is the last video I will be posting for the fall series, so I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments which one was your favorite. You guys have a wonderful day, and until next time, see you later.